Good afternoon, good evening, I guess I should say. I'd like to welcome you all to the first seminar as part of the LIACS Fall 2015 seminar series. So I'm Paul Sedaris, the current chair of the Long Island subsection of the American Chemical Society. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come for this chocolate tour. We're actually the first stop on this chocolate tour by our speakers. I'd like to just make a few quick announcements about the other seminars that QCC will host in the fall. We'd like to first thank not only Queensborough, but the chemistry department in particular and the student clubs, the Queensborough Community College student clubs that made this seminar and all the other seminars possible. So in particular, we'd like to thank the Chemistry Club, the Science Research Alliance, and the Haitian Club and STEM for providing the refreshments at the back of the room. So at the conclusion of the seminar, if you haven't already done so, there's an attendance sheet for our records, so please make an effort to just sign in. I'd like to just talk to you about the remainder of the talks we're going to have in the fall. So the Long Island subsection, we have the URL at the bottom of the slide here, which lists not only the seminars that are hosted here at Queensborough, but some other events as well, networking events. In particular, there is a vineyard tour this Saturday. There is information about registration, a few more words about the event on the site. So if you're interested, please check it out. So we have, this is the first of a series of seminars, as I mentioned before, by Dr. Howard Peters and Sally Peters, entitled Chocolate, Food of the Gods. Our second seminar will go back to the regular Thursday evening schedule. It's on October 1st, right here in this room, same time, 5:30 refreshments, 6 o'clock seminar. It's going to be given by Sean Devine from the Department of Chemistry at LIU Post, and the talk is entitled Palladium-Catalyzed Carbocyclization Reactions Involving Carbene Insertions. Okay, test you on that later. On November, absolutely, November 5th, we're very privileged to have a scientist from the Center of Functional Nanomaterials, CFN, at Brookhaven National Labs out on Long Island in Upton, New York, Long Island. Dr. Mingjiao Liu, he will give a talk entitled Semiconductor Nanostructures for High Efficiency Artificial Photosynthesis. Okay, so we look forward to seeing all of you on those dates. Again, any other information that you're interested in regarding our seminar series or other local events, please visit the URL that's at the bottom of the slide. We have a few guests I'd like to acknowledge at the top. Dr. Karen Steele, she is the Vice President for Strategic Planning, Assessment, and Institutional Effectiveness at QCC. Thank you for coming. We have Dr. Panagiotis Meletias. He's the Provost from York College, who made it all the way here. Dr. Donna Chirico, she's the Dean of Arts and Science at York College. Thank you for coming. We have the current chair, of course, of the New York section of the American Chemical Society, Dr. Paris Veronos. He's one of ours at Chemistry Department. We have the chair-elect, starting 2016, Dr. Allison Hislop, right here, who's going to be the chair of the New York section. Thank you for coming. And the 2013 chair, we have Dr. Philip Marks, who also managed to come. Thank you very much for your attendance. And thank all of you. So this is a very good turnout. I'd like to just spend some time and introduce our speakers. So Dr. Howard Peters received a BS in chemistry in 1962 at Geneva College in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. He then went on to get his PhD in organic chemistry from Stanford University in 1967. He spent some time as a research scientist at Dow Chemical and SRI International. He is an author and co-author of many technical and legal publications and presentations. He holds 7 patents, mostly in high explosives. How about that? In 1978, he received a Juris Doctor degree from Santa Clara University and practiced patent law in Silicon Valley for 30 years. He is a 52-year member of the ACS and has served as an elected member of the ACS Council for 35 years. He has served essentially on all national ACS elected committees and was an elected member of the ACS Board of Directors. He has received ACS Awards, American Chemical Society Awards, for his diversity and inclusion efforts and for his public outreach explaining science and scientific issues to general audiences. In 2006, he was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and for the past 14 years, he has been an invited judge for the chemistry at the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair, which I believe was called the Westinghouse, if I'm not mistaken. Sally Peters is also a chemistry graduate from Geneva College in 1964. She actually performed virus research at Stanford under Dr. Hubert Loring. He's the chemist who earlier first crystallized the polio virus, okay, and as later used by Dr. Jonas Salk. And she then worked briefly in the Swain Chemistry Library at Stanford. In 1983, she earned a master's degree in Library and Information Science at San Jose State University. She was an information specialist at Xerox PARC in Palo Alto for over 28 years. She has served as the chair of the Santa Clara Valley section of the ACS in 2001 and has served as an elected counselor for the section for over 20 years. She has organized the high school level ACS International Chemistry Olympiad competition in the Santa Clara Valley since 2001. So Dr. Howard and Sally Peters have been talking about and writing about chocolate, food of the gods, as a public outreach for chemistry in various venues for over 10 years. And we're actually, I believe, on the first part of their tour, their farewell tour. So this is a very special moment. Can you please join me in welcoming our speakers, Dr. Howard Peters and Sally Peters.
If you came for a very serious talk about the chemistry of chocolate, you need to talk with Dr. Joe Vinson at the University of Scranton. He can get here a lot easier. He's done chocolate cacao research for over 25 years with Hershey. In any event, to set the tone, the other grandparents to my granddaughters got this, so listen very carefully. This is not one of the drawing prizes.
I love chocolate.
Are there any questions? So what we have here is sort of touching the tips of the mountains, and you can go back and look in the literature, and you can also look in the internet. Much of this is on the internet. In fact, I will leave a URL with you that you can listen to most of this. It was recorded by the National Society in 2009 with the slides of the time. It has been improved. So with that, okay, and with the raffle, people will be getting a ticket. It's a double ticket, so we'll have the other one. Just hold it. And at the end of the program, for those who stay to the bitter end, there will be a drawing for bittersweet chocolate. No pun intended. We do have some consolation prizes, which are the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and also some chocolate itself. I like the older version, not the newer version with Johnny Depp. Why not just start at the back and come forward?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, good. So with that, let's get started. And I have a thing here somewhere. This happens. I'll be 75 next year, so this happens. I do forget things. This is Chocolate Food of the Gods, Fact and Fiction. And there's a number of things you need to know. The subtitle in this is usually Death by Chocolate. And there is a cookbook out of Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia's Merchant Square. And I used to have 2 copies, both signed by the author. I lent out one, and it never came back. How did we get started with all of this? In 2004, and even earlier, we were talking about chocolate, and we ended up doing it for our local section in the Silicon Valley of California. One thing led to another, and the reporter said, I think I've got something I want to do with this, and showed up at the house and took pictures. So we were the Valentine's Day in the Mercury News in San Jose over 10 years ago. Interesting time. So what are we going to learn about this? And I should be finished in 45 minutes, and we'll have a little time for the program. Recent history, biology, and chemistry and biochemistry of theobroma cacao. Theobroma from the Greek and sometimes from the Latin means exactly food of the gods. It was given that name by Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist. There will also be some health aspects, resources. Now, I have a trivial mind, so I have trivia about chocolate. And there'll be samples and tasting. And we will catch everyone with a raffle ticket when the program's over, so there will be a raffle and some consolation prizes. So with that, the ancient history, cacao as a food or something that people would eat started in the Amazon basin well before 1500 BC, but because of the heat and humidity in that area, there really isn't much left from it. The Mayans picked it up, moved across the isthmus into Central America, and we really know most about the Aztecs from this period of time. About 1520, Cortez invaded Mexico, the Aztec culture, destroyed it, and from about 1550 to 1700, it was a trade secret, its use within Spain, within the aristocracy and the Catholic Church. This is a Mayan pot from about 1500 BC, and Hershey chemists found traces of cacao in the cracks in the pot. And this is a statue, an icon of Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl was the Aztec god that brought the Aztecs the cacao plant and all of its benefits. He left after a while with a promise that he would return. And when Cortez arrived with his horses and muskets and steel, they thought it was Quetzalcoatl returning, which is one of the reasons why he had such control over the Aztecs of the time. In his hands is a cacao pod, and it's interesting the way they grow. It's only between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And if you look at that, you'll find that Hawaii is part of it, and that is one of the topics of another time. I happen to like this map because it has Peters in the name. In the processing, we'll cover the growing, harvesting, fermenting, drying, and the other aspects. But cacao has been around for about 1,500 or 2,000 years in the New World, and only the past 500 years in Europe and other places. So let's go back. With the growing occurs only in third world countries. In that area, harvesting is done by hand. Many people who have work on the plantations have never tasted finished chocolate. Fermenting is a step, and so is drying. You then roast it.
Are you going to explain those?
Yes. Okay. And the nibs, and then they're ground. Remove the fat by pressure, and they're powdered, and that powdered chocolate can be what you get at your local supermarket as baker's chocolate. So are you ready to start passing out any of the samples yet? Or are you going to keep them down here?
Well, no, I'm going to pass them. Okay. am I going to talk about?
This is unusual. Usually I tell people it's a George Byrne, Gracie Allen routine. When I explained this to a 26-year-old secretary, she asked who were they.
Okay, what are we starting with?
We're starting with the, yes,
Nibs or beans?
beans first, then nibs.
Beans first.
Beans first.
Okay, what about these beans?
They are fermented and dried, and they are dead. The fermenting is done at about 120 degrees Fahrenheit for 7 to 10 days, and I'll go to the pulp and talk about that. This is the biology. They come in trees about the size of a birch tree, same variegation, and the pods grow from the trunk or any place that the light hits. It can come up from a root from the ground. And these are the pods. Each of the seeds that you'll be seeing, the cacao beans, is in one of these white materials, and the white material is called pulp. And, this is a George Burns Gracie Allen routine.
Okay. The pods are interesting. They're about the size of a football, as he said. They come on the tree and they grow on the limbs and the stalk, not out on the edge like you think of a plum or an apricot or something. But they grow in different colors. Reds, oranges, yellows. I have not found out why the colors yet. The trees will have all three colors on them. The color sort of has something to do with when they're ripe or not, but the variety is not the color of the pod. The pods are large. When they dry, when they're cut and opened, they have this. Did you show the goopy picture? The goopy picture. See, the white stuff up there is known as goop. It's a technical term, believe me. And the pods, the beans that you see there are larger than what you're going to see when I pass them out because they're still green and they're still fresh. They could be planted and a tree could be started. But once they are dried and fermented, they won't sprout again. Okay? Okay.
And you're passing the
I'm
beans.
going to pass the beans, but what are they not supposed to do?
They're not supposed to bite them. You'll break a tooth. They're hard enough that your dentist will love you.
Feel them and look at them and take one or pass them on, what have you. And we're going to kind of just move around the audience and pass them around, back to front, etc.
And keep them at the back at the end. The Aztecs used the cacao beans when they were roasted and fermented as money. And you could buy rabbits, turkeys, slaves with a certain number of the cacao beans. So for the Aztec culture, money did grow on trees. This is where the pods are coming down off of the trunk. And as I said, they also come from various parts of the limb. This is a cross section. These are the leaves about the size of a birch leaf, but tiny, tiny blossoms. The blossoms are so small that only certain insects can do the cross-pollination, and those insects are called midges. And if you don't transplant the midges at the same time as you transplant the chocolate plant, you aren't going to get any cacao.
Why can't you use other bugs?
The bugs are too big
Bugs are too big for the
tiny bug. This is one of the cacao midges, and this, of course, is in large scale. The original Hawaiian chocolate factory is near Kona on the Big Island. This is Mr. Cooper. They found a grove that had been planted years before and were able to bring it back. And behind him is a fermenter. They just throw the beans and the pulp in there, and it germinates and causes its own fermentation. Some of the materials break down to acetic acid derivatives. Some go into the bean itself, and others go into the ground. And as you can see here, they do come in many different colors. Drying is like in a coffee bean. It can be done on the ground. This is a roaster from Scharfenberger in Berkeley, and any coffee roaster will work. But usually the conditions are trade secret, whether they're putting in special gases or what the temperatures or times are for the roasting to bring out the flavors. This is a winnower. Once they have got the bean that is being passed around roasted, what occurs is you have to get that shell off. So they're hit with pressure, grinded between stones or whatever, and then they used air pressure, an air stream, to separate the lighter shells from the actual nibs, which will be coming around shortly. Now, if you get to Hershey or Bucknell University, after they've finished one of these crushes, they use the shells for mulch. And you get this wonderful chocolate smell everywhere around the house. This is grinding. If you've been to San Francisco, and this is where I took the picture at Ghirardelli Square, this is called a mange, and the value of it is that it reduces the particle size of the nibs that are coming around, and the nibs have to get below 30 microns or you don't have all the chocolate flavor out. And the finer you can get it, the more flavors will come out. And we do know that European chocolate is very flavorful, and part of the reason is they can get that particle size down.
Okay, nibs.
Okay, nibs are there. The nibs that are coming around are what's inside the beans that were just passed around and that have been roasted and fermented. And you can take a sample of them, but they really are not good.
We gave this talk to a bunch of grade school kids about 6 months ago, and we started passing the nibs before Howard told them, you can taste them, but be careful. And the entire front row got up and ran because they took a mouthful of nibs, and they're on the bitter side, and they went and spit them out.
So be careful. A little bit will do you.
I like them on cereal.
Okay, so that's the nibs.
They add chocolate flavor to your cereal. You can buy these in the grocery stores sometimes. Oh, that's going to be a long way to go over.
Okay, so we've done we've done the nibs. We're talking about white chocolate, and white chocolate has all of the good things removed from it. It's almost pure fat. It's cocoa butter. And cocoa butter has a number of uses. One of them, of course, is for confection, the white chocolate confection. But these are the cocoa nibs and beans, and these are the nibs. And this is the white, and this is the cocoa butter you can buy at some stores. And there are the three good uses for it. One is as in confections. It's really, really useful as a lubricant, and it turns out that the secondary use for it, in addition to these confections, is in suppositories and preparation H. Is that more information that you needed? If you don't eat the white chocolate that's coming around, I'll understand. And you'll find a lot of it in lotions, particularly in suntan lotions.
Okay, white chocolate.
White chocolate. White chocolate, as I indicated, is just the cocoa butter with sugar, milk, and maybe some vanilla. I like it, but it's really not good for me.
But for people who are allergic to regular chocolate.
Yeah, if you're allergic to regular chocolate, there's probably a good chance that white chocolate will work for you. So. And you can get this, most of it comes from various stores. Back. Okay, baking chocolate is about 95%, and there was a baker's. And you sometimes find the percentage on it. Be careful of that percentage, because the percentage means the cocoa butter is also there, so it's also high in calories. But I say there's good fat and bad fat, and cocoa butter is good fat. Milk chocolate was invented in Switzerland in about 1875 by a man named Daniel Peter. My original family name is that, and I still have to make a connection.
He's forgetting. The original chocolate by the Aztecs and the Mayans and the early people in Europe was a chocolate drink. It was basically water and those nibs kind of boiled together. A little on the bitter side, but it was a drink. When did they first add sugar and milk to chocolate?
Well, the sugar was also part of the sugar trade between the New World, and that started about 1650 or 1670, and it was the Catholic Church that started doing this as a way of getting more people in. Milk chocolate is just that, unless they have the percentage on it, it's usually 10 to 25%. Semi-sweet can be in these ranges of 35 to 46. Bittersweet can be 50 to 95%. Scharfenberger, now owned by Hershey, has an 85% that I say is good enough to put in a syringe and inject directly for the rush.
Okay, but the percentage, Howard, is it the percentage of sugar in it? Is it the percentage of milk in it?
It's the center of the cacao.
It's the amount. Tell them that.
Okay. It's the amount of the cacao, including the cocoa butter. Okay, from about 1700 to 1800, it went to other countries all around Europe. First Italy, and then Germany, and finally to the United Kingdom. Dutch chocolate is where Van Houten found that if you put a little base with the chocolate syrup, it makes it easier to process, and it's been going that way ever since. And it also made it possible for it to be solid chocolate. Up until that point, it was mostly the drink, and the solid chocolate made a big difference.
You mean sodium hydroxide's in chocolate?
Yep. Okay. Actually, it's probably sodium bicarbonate. Okay. So French Valrhona is what you'll be having for samples of the chocolate. We have milk, semi-sweet, and bittersweet. And we do say at the end the base tasting chocolate is shared chocolate, so you can do what you want with it. In Germany, we have Milka, and Belgium, we have Godiva. The Swiss are interesting in that they eat the largest amount of chocolate per person, 22 pounds of chocolate per person per year. The U.S. is about 11 pounds. And the Swiss have these particular companies, Nestle, Lindt, and Toblerone. And Nestle is by far the largest purveyor of cacao in the world. Lindt is now owned by Nestle, and Toblerone is that triangular chocolate. I think I have those here. We have the English fries. The English were all Quakers. About this time, gin had been introduced, and it was ruining the lower class because the alcohol was so cheap. So they introduced chocolate drink and created a model community around the chocolate plants and treated the employees very, very well. And we do have Baker chocolate, started in Massachusetts in 1765. So this is Van Houten and his machine to help separate it with pressure, and had a number of recipes. French Valrhona, this is what you'll be getting. It comes from Lyon, France, and this is what you'll be tasting. And it comes in the 3 different varieties.
This is milk, what we consider milk, and it's 40%. So this is good, but it's not as good for you as the later.
Okay. We also have the German with the Milka, and if you see Ritter Sport, they also come from Germany. Belgian chocolate. Godiva is probably the best known, but who used to own Godiva chocolate until about 5 years ago?
Nobody knows.
Would you believe it was Campbell's Soup? And they still own Pepperidge Farm cookies. But they sold the entire line, so all the profit for Godiva chocolate goes to the largest food producer, Oka, in Turkey.
Godiva comes from Turkey?
No, that's where the money goes.
Oh, that's
And if you look at this Godiva, they usually have a figure of a woman on horseback with a lot of hair. That's as close as you get to a Peeping Tom and the story of Lady Godiva riding through the cities in Europe. Swiss, as I said, have Nestle, Lindt, and Toblerone. I like the Toblerone, but I think people buy it because it has a cute shape. And Nestle is the backer for the Wonka bars. English, I mentioned Cadbury and Rowntree. And John Cadbury was the chocolatier to Queen Victoria, which meant if she was passing out gifts to anyone that were chocolate, they came from him. And Fry's used to be in Bristol, and they just moved everything to Poland for economic reasons. The competition is really, really, really bad. And here's Queen Victoria. Most people don't remember the lady on the left when she looked when she was young, more when she had lost Prince Albert. And this is her a few years after that, where she had to run a country and raise 8 kids. She wasn't very happy about that. The American colonies, Baker, Mass. Here's this Baker chocolate you can get anywhere.
All right, when do we get to the chemistry?
Coming, right now. Don't get in a hurry. So here's some of the chemistry that is involved with the chocolate. I think there's a Nobel Prize out there for someone who understands what happens in that fermentation that takes 7 days and 120 degrees Fahrenheit. There will not be a test on this, but xanthanes are a particular organic structure. We find them many places in nature. Theobromine is on the right, and you'll notice it has this 5-membered ring, 6-membered ring structure, and note what's there. You'll find nothing is there. This is caffeine. Here we are comparing them. The only difference between caffeine and theobromine, the active ingredient, main active ingredient in cacao and chocolate, is a methyl group. That one right there. Your body can tell the difference. Now, would you feed chocolate to your dog? Why not? They get sick and they can die. But it's size dose related, which means that you wouldn't feed dark chocolate to your Chihuahua. Not a good thing. But my daughter raises Great Danes in Pasadena, California, and I assure you, you cannot kill a Great Dane with chocolate. I've tried.
Okay. What can't the dogs process?
Oh, the xanthine structure. The 6-membered ring, 5-membered ring structure, the xanthine, they don't have enough of an oxidase to break it down. It builds up to a toxic level. And if they can get it out of their system quick enough, they'll just get very sick.
Okay. We just passed out the bittersweet, which is 60%. I like this one.
And this is theophylline, mostly found in tea. And these are cytosine and guanine, part of the building blocks of life. And thymine, adenine, and guanine, as you know, as chemists, was isolated about 150 years ago from guano, which we know is bird poop. If you don't eat any more of the white chocolate, I will understand. And these are amphetamines. They're also in chocolate. And I'll talk a little bit later about beta-phenethylamine. We have L-dopa and dopamine. epinephrine, norepinephrine, epinephrine better known as adrenaline. But the beta-phenethylamine is probably the material that young men and young women crave when they've had a bad love affair. And the reason for that is your body can use it as a starting material. Over here, all you do is cyclize that chain and add an amino acid, which is tryptophan. Your body can do this. You find tryptophan in turkey and in milk. It makes you a little sleepy. A couple more changes. Add a hydroxyl group and reduce things here, and you get serotonin, which is one of the endorphins in your brain. I can't tell you to eat more dark chocolate and feel better. I don't have a medical license in New York, but you might try it. Do your own experiment. And this is anandamide, which was recently isolated from cacao, and Ananda is bliss in Sanskrit, and this material fits directly into the beta receptor for morphine in your brain. I won't tell you how much chocolate you have to eat to get that effect. You can run your own experiment. The flavonoids are the reason why chocolate is healthy now, and it's not just this basic flavonoid structure, and I only have one here, which is catechin. And the hydroxyl groups are very valuable because they trap free radicals. So if you have too much alcohol or air pollution or the like, they'll get trapped in those hydroxyl groups, and the free radicals will not cause cell damage, such as you find in mad cow disease.
Okay, wait a minute. You must have shown about 15 chemical compounds there, some pretty large ones.
Yeah.
Are all 15 in these little squares of chocolate?
And those 15 are there, plus about 400 more that they're still finding. It is a real gamish, and there's a lot of chemistry that's being done. I mentioned Joe Vincent at the University of Scranton. If you want a real chocolate.
You said that.
Oh, okay. He tells me. This is what happens when you've been married 51 years. You'll find this in one of the ACS journals. The top material for chocolate is dark chocolate, 1,300 units. Milk chocolate is adulterated with about 6,000. And others have prunes, and you can buy cranberries and blueberries and the like that are covered with chocolate, and I recommend them. Not the prunes. Here are some of the other aspects of the health benefits of chocolate. It works as an antioxidant and deals with removing atherosclerosis. Joe Vincent did this. He's at the University of Scranton and does work for Hershey. And also modulates the HDL and LDL levels in your body, favoring the low density, which is the better. So what are the resources? If you plug in chocolate into Google, you're going to 500 million hits plus. There are books, movies, magazines, word of mouth. Taste is like wine. No one can tell you what type of wine you like, and no one should be able to tell you what type of chocolate you like. If you go to the web, putting in your favorite chocolate, you'll probably find there's a website. I suggest you go to them and check them out. Many of them have YouTube presentations showing how they do it, and they're really, really very good. I'll talk a little more about some of the lists that's here, and also this list, which comes from California. See's is in mostly California. Ghirardelli is there. Guittard, which is a chocolate supplier for See's, is 20 miles from us, and they know us on site. Joseph Schmidt was a premier chocolate company in San Francisco where they actually used white and dark chocolate and painted on with food coloring and sold them, and people would put them in frames rather than eat them. But when the recession hit in 2008, Hershey had already bought them and closed them down. And Scharfenberger, which is one of my favorite chocolate, was made in Berkeley. They closed the plant, and they moved everything to downstate Illinois to a Hershey factory. So they haven't messed with the formula yet, but Scharfenberger is really a good chocolate.
Where's the rest of Hershey made?
The rest of Hershey is now made in Mexico. The Great American Chocolate Bar has moved out of the United States. So, the last thing here will be the movie E.T. What was the candy that the E.T. followed to the woodshed in that movie from 30 years ago? Reese's Pieces. And the reason for that is originally it had been Mars M&M, but when the contract got up to a vice presidential level, they decided the company, Mars, didn't want to be involved with a movie about a friendly alien and this unknown director named Steven Spielberg. I like this particular thing because 4 weeks after the movie started, and Hershey stepped in immediately, had just started with Reese's Pieces, the sales of Reese's Pieces around the United States had quadrupled. It was really good marketing. So if you want a book about Hershey and the company, this is the unapproved edition. There was a lawsuit to try to stop it being published. All of the volumes have that blue sticker, which says this is not approved by the Hershey Company, and they do dig up a little dirt on the family. It turns out that Milton Hershey was an autocrat when it came to the company. He hired and fired people at will, and often had them back within a matter of days. Mrs. Hershey died early. And he never remarried, but there's some question about what her ailments were. And they also had tickets on the Titanic, but he had to come back to deal with the problem at the plant in Hershey a week before, and he had arrived in New York when the news came about the sinking. This, if you like flowery Victorian prose, is the book for you. You can get all of these on Amazon. And yes, it makes Hershey seem like he walks on water. If you really want a good book that's a general book that almost anyone can understand, I can recommend any of these from the Coes. They're social scientists at Yale. She passed away when the first one came out of breast cancer, and he did the second one as a memorial to her. And there's now a third one. Really does a nice job. And then there is the Science of Chocolate out of the Royal Society of Chemistry. If you go to June of 2008, you'll find a review of the book written by Howard and Sally Peters. And as we were reading the book and getting ready to do the review, we noticed there weren't many organic structures there. So it turns out that Stephen Beckett's a physicist, and his work with Nestle was dealing with the snap and the sort of the texture of the chocolate rather than what was the chemical composition. So I emailed him and said, we have this book, we're doing a review, and we would recommend that you have some more organic chemistry structures in here. There just aren't enough for those of us that are organic chemists. He emailed me back and he said, Howard, what do you think drove me into physics? He's now retired, and I've heard he's working on a third edition. There are the Emperors of Chocolate, which talks about the dark side of chocolate, the cartels that control the cacao futures and the like around the country. There's also an ultimate encyclopedia with some really good recipes in it and a lot of information. This comes out of the University of California, Davis, which is the ag school. And although two of the people that are involved with it are chemists, there isn't much chemistry in it. But if you want more of the folklore of what's going on, this is the book for you. There was Seeds of Change, came out to celebrate 500 years after Columbus. And the value of the book was to show that it wasn't just the gold and silver that went back from the Aztec and the Inca culture to the old world. It were the seeds. Seeds of change. They didn't have corn as we know it. Potatoes, tomatoes, popcorn or cacao. I must be wearing it out. I happen to like this particular cookbook because the lady author and her husband spent some really good time with it. But in the flyleaf, she says, well, we do find people who say they don't like chocolate, and we usually find they lie about other things too. This is a fine cookbook if you want 365 recipes to try every day, as in Julie and Julia. This will do it. And another topic that we have is chocolate or religious experience. Next month will be the comic relief at the law school in Santa Clara University. They have continuing legal education courses for the lawyers to get credit, and the spouses come to this. But there is an amazing amount of religion involved with this. It's a completely different story. So if you go to Times Square or Las Vegas Strip, you'll find an M&M store, and you'll also find a Hershey store. And this used to be, the M&Ms used to be a joint venture between Hershey and Mars. One M is for Mars, the other is for Murphy, who was the president of Hershey at the time. If you like Russell Stover or boxed chocolates, you find that Russell Stover makes over 50% of the boxed chocolate in the country. A really good chance. They also make Whitman's, which has that roadmap on the inside so you know what you're getting. So you've seen the movie Forrest Gump, where life is like a box of chocolates where you never know what you're going to get. Well, if you get Whitman's, you should know what you're going to get. And this is the original Ghirardelli. He was a chocolate maker in Chile, and his neighbor was James Lick, who left in 1847 to come to San Francisco. He soon got a message that they had discovered gold in California and come and reap your fortune. Well, he moved to California, was a terrible gold miner, but he made great chocolate and established a chocolate dynasty that lasted over 100 years. And this is the iconic Ghirardelli Square. We don't go there much because it's become a tourist trap. See's candy we like. This is the first See's store in San Francisco. They were Canadian, about 1920, moved to Los Angeles for health reasons, and Mary C. did most of the original recipes, and she's still working with them.
She's still working with them?
I'm sorry, they're still working with them. Sorry. Okay. Why would I have something about Charles Munger and Warren Buffett from Berkshire Hathaway and a talk about chocolate?
You kids know who they are.
Yeah, and you see them on the financial pages. Well, it turns out that in the 1970s, they bought See's Candy, and they've never messed with the formula. Munger, his wife Nancy, is a Stanford graduate, and they just finished a $60 million site on the campus for lodging for graduate students. And if you want See's, this is one of the See's boxes. They do nicely, and they travel well. And it turns out Berkshire Hathaway still owns Dairy Queen. So you never know where these are going to come. Why would I have something in a talk about chocolate having to do with Baroness Margaret Thatcher? She was the longest serving prime minister in the 20th century in the UK, and she was a chemist. Her original degree at Oxford was with Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkin as a bachelor's student. Crowfoot Hodgkin won the Nobel Prize in 1964 for crystallography, and she actually worked on some of the early work with that. After she graduated, she worked in an ice cream plant dealing with crystallization problems, and then she married someone who owned a chemistry and food program, and Dennis Thatcher allowed her to go to school, and the rest is history. She got a law degree. So I have a law degree with, I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry, and I have a love of chocolate. And I share a birthday with her. And when she celebrated her 80th birthday a number of years ago in London at a hotel, I didn't get invited, and I wrote to her. And we all know the story of the Iron Lady. Well, it turns out they didn't use the books about Margaret Thatcher. She has a number of them out, and they're really quite good. What they used as the basis of that was this, written by her daughter, which leaves out quite a number of things. You should read the other books to have a full picture. How about this? How many people have seen the I Love Lucy episode with this in it? Yes. Well, it turns out that this was done at a See's facility in Pasadena, California, that's now closed. And we know Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance, but the lady in the middle actually worked for See's, and she's the one who kept yelling, "Speed up that line." And it turns out that you can even get a stamp, and here they are on one of our postage stamps. And Hershey also has a stamp for the kisses about 10 years ago. This is Percy Spencer. He's the inventor of the microwave. Why would I have something about this in a talk about chocolate? What? Yes, yes. He had a chocolate bar in his coat pocket when this particular circuit was activated, and the chocolate bar melted. So it got popcorn, it popped. He got some eggs, and they exploded. It turns out Raytheon was the parent company, and they marketed only to supermarkets and high-end restaurants. And when all the patent rights ran out, they considered it a complete economic failure. But it shows how the patent system can work, because now almost all, like 90% of the households in the United States have a good working, inexpensive microwave oven. So more of the trivia. If you look at these particular sites, you may find they have specials. This was about 10 years ago, where they had sweatshirts, 25 wrappers, and $2, and you could get this. By the time it was finished, I had 24 T-shirts. You can do the math. And this comes from the movie The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks a while ago. I like this one, being a retired lawyer, but we're not sure about Utah.
All that caffeine?
Well, and how close it is to theobromine. Close to us is the Chocolate Church in Belmont. Literally, if you put Belmont Chocolate Church in your search engine, you'll come up with it. Every October, they have a chocolate fest, about $20 for all the chocolate you can eat in 3 hours. They know us on site, and at one point they said, "We never make any money on you." This has nothing to do with chocolate. It's not one of the components. It happens to be marketing. It is marketing. The letters come out right. And if you get to Kona, the original Hawaiian chocolate factory has tours. The chocolate's $40 a pound, but the volcanic ash gives it a very interesting flavor. There is a chocolate Bible for the religious experience. And my wife wears this sweatshirt on occasion. And she insists I include this particular one, but she also says that she would only sell me for really fine chocolate.
$40 a pound.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a member of ARP, and this was one of the covers several years ago. This is the insert. Actually, Sally thinks the number is really a lot higher than that. And I didn't get this for her, she got it for me. There are actors in Hollywood that like chocolate themes. Here's the original Willy Wonka. That's one of the prizes. More recently, it's with Johnny Depp. And I don't particularly care for this one. I like the original, but then I'm old. And there is Chocolat. And it turns out that the chocolate in this particular movie had special side effects. And it turns out the reason it had special side effects is they combined the chocolate with pepper, chili pepper and cayenne pepper in certain proportions. And when I mentioned I was going to have some of these chocolate bars, which are spicy Mayan, which have cayenne and chili pepper in them, the lawyer for the ACS said, why don't you get a waiver and disclaimer if you're having that as a prize? We don't want to be responsible for any of the side effects. And this is chocolate tea. I don't recommend chocolate. Chocolate and coffee are fine, but the chocolate and tea just don't go together unless there's a lot of cinnamon. And we found cinnamon does help. But the chocolate flavor just wipes out all of the tea. And don't do this at home. There is no improvement in the flavor of either. So where can all this chocolate take you? Well, almost 10 years ago, I became a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry in London. And Sally, who's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and rather hard to impress, said, well, it's the second thing royal about you. The first is pain. And I countered that she should call me Sir Howard, and you can figure how that went. But she did say, leaving the door open, that if we went to London and came back on the Queen Mary 2, she might consider it. So our local 3As had a special, a balcony on the Queen Mary 2 coming back from Southampton. We went to London, had a great time, came back. But be careful what you pray for. Your prayers may be answered because I do now get, Sir Howard, it's time to take out the trash. And it turns out that when we were on the Queen Mary 2, I mentioned to the cruise director, the Captain Stubing equivalent, that they didn't have anything about chocolate, and he wrote me and said, get a hold of these people in Southampton. So I sent them some stuff by email. I know they got it because they asked for a picture, and about 4 months later, I'm working at my computer, and I get a call in the morning. Now, I'm retired, and Sally's still working, and the call goes something like this. Are you Howard Peters? Yes. Do you and your wife talk about the chemistry of chocolate? Yes. Well, this is Cunard calling from Southampton, and we have an emergency. Can you be in New York City in 48 hours for a free cruise in the Caribbean on the Queen Mary 2 and talk chocolate? Yes, I can do that. So I called Sally because she was still working, and much of her work dealt with providing information for lawsuits from the library. And sometimes she didn't have any spare time. So I said, this is what's going to happen. I'm retired, and I can do this. I'm starting to send the stuff to them so they can clear us. And I don't know if you'll be able to go along. And her answer was, from here, do you think for 1 minute you're going alone? So that's what happened. We had a great time on the Queen Mary 2, and yes, chocolate is food of the gods. And we clean up pretty good to meet the captain. If you have going to have additions to the family, new arrivals, in 24 hours, Hershey has licensed this to an outside company. You can get it in 48 hours. All they do is rewrap another chocolate bar with the information. And this is my older granddaughter. And yes, the name is Bott. The other grandfather's a PhD chemist. Between my wife, he, and I, the grandkids have 140 years of ACS membership. They don't have a chance. And this is the younger granddaughter. And here they are about 8 years ago when Mom and Dad were both at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. And here they are now. No, 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And we're trying to teach them that the best tasting chocolate is shared chocolate, but as you can see, they haven't bought that yet. We did give the talk in Hershey, Pennsylvania, about 2006, and you cannot buy any other chocolate in Hershey except Hershey. Let's go back. So the takeaways from this, you have to be careful of false teachings and false chocolate. The people that are older in this group can remember carob. And carob was what you used to be healthy when you didn't want chocolate, and now no one knows about it. And the other thing is, the best tasting chocolate is always shared chocolate. These are the acknowledgments of the people who helped on this, and I think we're ready for the raffle. Some people may have come in at the end. Does everyone have one of the tickets for the raffle? Has anyone been missed? The organic chocolates, you mean that don't have any pesticides, or they're grown? Yeah. Well, organic chocolate for me would mean they're made in an area where there's no pesticides. It's a completely processed food.
The trees.
The tree where they're doing it, or later. There are also those that are estate grown, where you can get them from a single plantation, and the latest one is deal with them where you have essentially green cacao, where they treat the people very well in the area, because many people that work on these plantations have never tasted finished chocolate. Never tasted finished chocolate.
Now, where does the most chocolate, the cacao, come from?
The Ivory Coast has about 30% of the raw cacao. Ghana and Kenya bring it up to 50 in Africa, and then the rest is around the world. There's a lot now coming from the Philippines and Indonesia. But there is some in Hawaii, so if you get to Hawaii, check out the original Hawaiian chocolate factory. It's worth a trip.
Okay.
Do you know about mole? You know what mole is?
Mole, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you get chili in Cincinnati, they have cacao. They have cocoa in it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, about the chocolate in Hawaii. Is that native to Hawaii?
No, not native. It was brought in about 15, 20 years ago. Someone planted a grove and then abandoned it. So take a look about chocolate in Hawaii. It's an interesting story. Sugar's gone. There's no more sugar plantations, very few pineapple plantations, but they're trying to make the crop now be chocolate and coffee. And coffee.
Coffee.
Yes, question right here.
Antioxidant is one of the health benefits of chocolate, right? And which component or chemical component would it be? It's going to be associated with. Which chemical components is the antioxidant associated with?
Well, the catechins are the ones dealing with the free radicals, but the others I don't think have really been identified. Which of them are specific? The Germans have a word gemisch, which means it's a mixture of a lot of things, and I think that's what chocolate is. And I don't know all of the details. There is a book out by Jeffrey Hirsch from Hershey called Chocolate as Medicine. Came out from the Royal Society of Chemistry a couple years ago, and it has a great deal of the information you're looking for.
Okay, last question right there. Yes.
What are the side effects of
I can't.
spicy Mayan chocolate?
Oh, the side effects. Side effects of the spicy Mayan chocolate.
Well, if you watch the movie, what appears is that the question is...
You have to wait for after hours is basically what he's trying to say. This is...
No. The question is chocolate an aphrodisiac? Oh, and one of our talks in process it discusses is chocolate an aphrodisiac. So sample your chocolate.
Not good for doing homework.
Yes. Do your own homework.
Okay, let's thank our speakers for a very entertaining and educational talk. So this concludes the first seminar. I want to stress that please take all your belongings, obviously, and the trash with you. There are a few bins on the back of the room. Please throw out all the trash. If you have not signed in, we have an attendance sheet by the doors. Please make sure to sign in just for our records. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you on October 1st for our next seminar.